Monday. That's perfect. It's perfect. You get some special kudos for giving us that plan. Because that's a huge difference between thoughtful ethics that are likely to keep getting more Christ-like, more intelligent, more beneficial to self and others, and ethics that get stuck, that get hung up. There's lots of approaches to considering ethics, to teaching ethics. There's lots of approaches to teaching and considering Christian ethics. Let's pray and we'll see if we can tell the difference between some of those and some others. Father, once again, as we have lives to live, and it might matter how we live them and how we affect the lives of others, we ask for sense, wisdom, guidance, and opportunities to fail. In Jesus' name, amen. You will fail. If you're not failing, you're not trying enough things. That includes ethically. That probably sounds palatable, but if I say that includes morally, then some of you have kind of a funny feeling about that. If I say, if you're not failing morally, you're probably not actually trying enough things. That sounds different, doesn't it? Than if I say failing ethically. How many of you, when I say that, it's like, well, I'm not sure I'd put it that way. I see careful little hands. No, if I say something, they'll pick on me. My name will go on the board. They'll bring me up here. They'll be referring to me next time. That's all probably true. It could look entirely different this whole quarter. And in nearly every place in the United States, well, in the world, where you would take a class that's just called anything to do with, whether it's introduction or it's advanced or intermediate or considerations in Christian ethics, we got one for you. You got lots of choices. You can either sit in it or not, I guess. What happened there? There's a black hole. There's dark matter or something. and randomly out of the middle. It's not like out of one of the ends or anything. There's disturbance in my force. So I think what was behind that? I'm pent up. I miss investigations in law enforcement, I guess. It's fun to look at something and say, ooh, a puzzle. I have to figure this out and tell it like a story. I like that. Most places where you would go to take Christian ethics would start off, I think, by establishing basis of authority so that you can go check the list or the algorithm so that you can determine when you have a question, should I do this? Is this okay to do or is this a wrong thing to do? You go check and you can find out. PUC has the PUC student handbook. Have you seen that little blue paper thing? If you've seen it, it means you've probably been to the student conduct committee. Most people that I talk to have, when they see it, it's when they've been to student conduct and they saw it the first time the night before. But it has in there a list of PUC no-nos that are special to PUC's heart. They say, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't have beer in Granger Hall, and you can't breed in the track lot, and you cannot You cannot go nude. And there's some things in there also in the school rules about writing things in a paper and turning it in, even though somebody else wrote that before you did, and you don't give a hint about that in the paper. They kick you out of school for that if you get caught enough times. And then you can't even come back. It's serious. It says in there that you need to not have certain things in Andre Hall. You can't have like a deep fryer that you use right in the room. You can't weld in nickel. A few things like that. No birthday candles, no incense. No space heaters, no extension cords. So these are the list of no-nos. And if you ask a young child, you sit them down, you're visiting at their home, and you say to the child, do you draw on the wall? The child is probably going to say, no. Why not? Well, because, what would they say? Because what? How come we don't draw on the wall when we're 2 or 3 years old? Huh? Parents don't want you to. They don't care about that. You get punished. You get punished. So they have some way of knowing that drawing on the wall or driving the car, getting the keys when mom's in the shower, There was a little girl here in town who was, she was preschool age. I think she was 3.5 or 4 or something the first time, but her mom got in the shower and she went and got her mom's keys from her person. Went and started, they had a Chevy Blazer, and she started it up and put it in gear and drove it over the edge of the property so that it went till it hit a tree and hurt it good. They had to get a tow truck to fish it out, and she was told to not do that. So she didn't. For a week and a half until she did again. And this time she got it in reverse and backed it into one of the other cars. and they told her, no, we really don't want you to do that. So she didn't for several months. And the next time she got the car out of the driveway and onto the street before she got it in the ditch. So if you ask a child, can you go drive the car, when your mom's in the shower, they're going to say that they can't do that because they know that they can't. And they probably will say, because I'll get in trouble, because I'll get a beating, or I'll get on timeout, or I'll have something taken away, I get grounded, whatever happens. Probably in a lot of families, whether they like to admit it or not, if you run a car into the other car, it might actually involve corporal punishment in a lot of houses today. It would have in our house. It would have involved corporal punishment if the kids had driven a car into the other car, because that's something that could have really, really hurt somebody, and we need it to stop now instead of in a few years. If you ask most people, if you just pick something like you say to an Adventist person, can you eat pork chops? Most Adventist people would say, no, we don't eat pork chops. Well, how come? The reasons are going to be all over the map. People are going to tell you all kinds of reasons. Some people, without any introduction, will simply say Leviticus 11. Right? Because of Leviticus 11. Well, what about? Why Leviticus 11? Well, because Leviticus 11 says that you can eat a creature that dwells on the earth if it has a split hoof and it chews cud. It's ruminant. It regurgitates from one stomach. It reprocesses with saliva and chews it and then swallows it. It goes to a different stomach and keeps doing that process because that's how it digests fiber. What we don't digest. It's a carbohydrate that's left-handed instead of right-handed, I think, and we don't have the enzyme, and they have the enzyme for it. Any biology majors here to back me up? Who's biology here? What do they do? Have a special one of these for the biology students? Just like for non-sciences. We do have a science major here. Who's science? What kind? What? That's professional.
Well, it's communicative science.
Okay. This science, this is a vegetarian science, right? It's like physics, or I'm not a physicist, so it's like Richard Feynman said. I don't know if you know who Richard Feynman is, but a great physicist who gave us a way to understand quantum mechanics that's still in use today. You can look him up on YouTube. He talks about the social sciences. He says, I don't know about the social sciences with the so-called social sciences. They don't have any theories. They haven't come up with anything yet. Maybe someday they will. I don't know. He says I think, if you have to put the term sciences after whatever it is you got going, it might not be quite a science. So you got all kinds of things. You got exercise science, food science, entertainment science. And so he, as a physicist, he was a snob. Physicists are sometimes snobs like that. They don't even think chemistry is really a science. And they know biology's not. So they're way off. They're off the deep end. But if you ask another Adventist in the same church, they could even be the same age. And these could be adults. These could be people my age. They could be people your age. They could be people old enough to be my parents. They could be 12. You could get all kinds of answers for why you don't eat pig. Okay? Well, one is someone will say, hey, well, they've proven that there's trichinosis you can get from it. So I don't want worms living in me and crawling out through my skin, because they've heard about worms and that sort of stuff, So, come on in. We're sorely lacking because somebody robbed us of a desk, right out of the middle. So we're going to make do, I think, with this. I'll stand, though, okay? I'll just stand the whole time. Sorry, we need more of those pieces that go. Hide them. If you know where they are, you are the man. Once again. Yeah, we don't hide anything here. You don't have a surplus storage area.
Isn't it in the closet?
It's that back closet.
Seriously? They're in there? Desks are in the back closet?
No, but
Check it out. We can sit forever. Wow. You did this before today, huh? You know how to make one of those work? Is the handedness the right direction? Because you can't do it upside down if you're... Is that the right... Yeah, that's for a right-handed. That's for a person who's dexterous and not sinister. Anyone here left-handed? The left hands go up. Because of the root that means left, we get our word for sinister. Do you know that? Sinestro. Or dextros. Dextro is right. Sinestro. Sinestro is left. So we say somebody's got good dexterity, or they're very sinister. It's interesting. If you go and visit United Arab Emirates, what's that place everybody goes to play? Dubai, where they've got entirely too much stuff and ridiculous hedonism is on display, in spite of their humble Muslim background. You can't eat with your left hand there. You'll be in trouble. For real, you can't eat with your left hand there. You don't put out your left hand to shake or anything either. That's It's your unclean hand in their culture. It's used for exclusively unclean things. So you have to practice eating with your right hand if you're going to go to Dubai. That will actually punish you. Really, it's in all the travel literature for the place. So somebody who's asked about why to don't eat pig, not remembering where in the Old Testament, not wanting to get into it since they can't remember where at the time, they may, and knowing better than to think that they're most likely probably going to get trichinosis if they eat pork, they're going to say something like, because God told us not to. Or they're going to say, because we don't believe in it. Or they're going to say, my church says that we can't. We don't do that. It's against the church rules. Or somebody else may say, because I want to be as healthy as possible. Say, do you eat ice cream? Oh, sure. Okay. So you wouldn't eat like a really lean cut of pork, but you'd eat ice cream. Absolutely. So -5 on the health reason. And so how come you don't do it? Well, because there's some people in my church that will be offended by it, and I don't want to be a stumbling block. That one may come out. But is there anybody here, and I want to see your hand, is anybody here who says, who would say, I don't eat pork? Is there anybody here that does not eat pork? Why don't you eat pork? Why not? Is it because it's your tradition to not eat pork? It's your culture to don't eat pork? Yes? Adventism has a culture. It has a subculture. Judaism has a subculture. They don't eat pork if they're Muslims. They don't eat pork either. A lot of people don't eat pork. So who here, you don't eat pork for some reason I didn't mention? Yes?
I can't do any pig products, anything since taking biology.
Oh, because it's repulsive to you?
Because we have to dissect the pig.
Oh, man. What's going to happen if you ever have to dissect a cow?
That's why I'm not bio anything.
You switched it so you wouldn't starve to death. I like it. I like that. What if they asked you to dissect a chicken?
I'd stay away from the biology department.
Okay.
Any nursing, any of that stuff, no.
No, you can't go there.
Formaldehyde would be good.
No formaldehyde. Okay. Well, they usually don't use formaldehyde processing pork, in the butcher shop. Okay, so because it's repugnant to you to eat pork. Any other reasons that I didn't mention? Yes?
I won't eat certain meats because of the taste. Like ham, I don't eat because I don't like the taste of it.
What about bacon?
I'll eat that.
Oh, okay.
I'm a meat eater.
I've never met anybody who's tasted bacon that doesn't like it.
Yeah.
It's not like something for a star athlete to eat all the time. It's like a lot of fat. It's not good for you, but they've got ice cream that's flavored with bacon, even, and pastries and things. They really do. People put bacon in everything.
And chocolate.
Yeah, it gets mixed with chocolate. Sure. I've met people who don't think that there's anything that doesn't, go with bacon except not enough more bacon. So you just don't like the taste of it. Yeah. That's true for me of pork chops. When they're cooking, they're just foul. They're just rancid smelling. They smell rancid when they're fresh. Ugh. Not ham. So I was 10 when I was baptized and became an Adventist, and there were traditions with ham. Like that was New Year's Day was always a ham, and I think we had ham at Easter and some stuff like that. But and whenever my mom thought of it, but I loved it, and I loved bacon. The little strippy things, they just never got there for me. I like them, but they're not bacon. So Bacon and I got a divorce, but I've kind of said, I remember you, and it was a pleasant marriage for the first 9 years or whatever. Good. That's a good. don't like the taste.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 aesthetic arguments in a row. What else? Anything else I didn't mention for why you don't do it? Anybody? Yes.
Pigs eat like junk.
They eat junk.
Yes.
Okay. So they're the garbage collectors.
Yeah.
You ever watched a chicken entertain itself? They'll pretty much eat anything. But we eat eggs. We never eat pig ova. I don't know why. Almost never does anybody eat pig ova, but they eat chicken ova. Ova. Egg. It's funny how that is. When you come up, though, like we mentioned earlier, with the question like, okay, well, what about duck? What do we do with duck? You don't have any Leviticus 11 to go on. Leviticus 11 leaves you hanging out there, either with your mouth salivating or going, well, I hope I can get out of this. I don't want to offend these people, but I just don't like the idea because it's like it's Donald. Can't eat like Donald. I mean, it doesn't seem right. I don't eat mice because of Mickey Mouse. I don't want to eat duck, because of Donald. And life has a way of presenting you things. And here's the shock. Like most things. That nobody could have possibly thought to write a rule about. Most of the decisions you make, there's no rule to tell you you should or should not, or that you're required to, or that you're prohibited. Most of the decisions you make aren't in any rule book. Anywhere. Now you might be thinking, well, those aren't moral decisions. Like, do I wear my purple shirt today, or do I wear my white shirt today? Not a moral decision. So you're thinking, well, but those things don't matter. Careful. It's a tricky little shell game. The reason that our brains would say, but those things aren't moral issues, the reason we're saying that is because they're not in the rule books. You catch that flim-flam? We say, I don't have to worry about that. That's not a moral decision. That's not an ethical matter. It's not in the rule book. Anything I need to know that's a moral decision is in the rule book. Well, how do you know that? Well, because it's in the rule book. That's what makes it a moral issue. That lets ourselves off too easy. Very many times, people who get stuck at that stage like 9, 10, 11-year-olds that are like, because it's the rule, because it's the law. When they get stuck there, and then they might move along in other areas of their life, but in church, that's where they get maybe spiritually abused at that age or something, and it arrests their development. And if you ever want to ask them to consider the ethical ramifications of something that's not like in the Ten Commandments, or the Ten Commandments doesn't quite answer the question, or it's not in Leviticus 11, and Jesus and Paul and Moses, they didn't say anything anywhere, all the way from Genesis 1 all the way to the end of Revelation. So you're flipping around at the end of Revelation and you've looked all through and you go, it doesn't say. It doesn't say. So then I guess I'm free to do whatever I want. The trouble is that people that accuse you of lowering the standards because you won't put your focus on the law usually have the lowest standards in the place. Because they believe that there's this little tiny list, and as long as it's not mentioned on there, they can go do what they want. Whatever the consequences, however it affects them and the world and the universe, whatever principles might be getting stepped on, they just have this idea if they get stuck at 10 years old. Now, that makes sense when you're 9 or 10. If you come home and your kid is doing something and you left them unsupervised for a bit, you look at it and you go, oh, No, please don't be using that in that way. And the person will say, you didn't tell me not to. You never told me not to. And you think about it and you say, that is really true. I never did tell you not to do that. I didn't tell you not to go in there and look at that stuff or handle that thing or use that up. I didn't say anything about that. I didn't make a rule. And they say to you, and other things like that you've said I can do. Well, that's true. Forgot to make a rule. So you understand that when somebody's 9 or 10. But it doesn't fly when they're 40. It doesn't fly when they're 23. It doesn't even fly when they're in high school about some things. We are expected to have a very different standard when we're older than when we're 10. There's a passage in the New Testament that calls the law a schoolmaster to bring us to Christ, and says though that when we are older we don't need the schoolmaster. And people have used that to say that we don't have to follow the commandments, we don't have to keep the law, whatever. The interesting thing is that the word in the Greek isn't actually like a school teacher. It isn't actually like anything that we have a word for in English, so it gets translated as schoolmaster. But what it was somebody that people used to hire to get their kids to where they needed to get their education or their training or their apprenticeship. It was a function in society, like today, very much like a school bus driver. Very similar to a school bus driver. So when someone hauls that out and tells you it doesn't really matter about God's law, you can say why, and they're going to say because it says that it's just a schoolmaster to bring us to Christ. And you let them know that they should take a little closer look at that word that got translated as schoolmaster, because that's a lot more like a school bus driver. Once you get there, it doesn't mean that it's not important anymore either. I'd like you to be able to identify, so this is a preamble to something that's pretty likely fat test question. I'd like you to be able to identify a major difference between the kinds of ethics that you and I have just been talking about that are very common among religious people in this country, very common among little children in any country, this keep the rules thing, and don't do what's wrong as a way of being ethical. Don't violate the law. Don't do things you were told not to by people with proper authority. Don't break the commandments. Don't break the church rules. Don't break the school rules, yada, yada. I'm going to tell you about a whole different model. And we mentioned it, but I want to go into it a little bit more. We mentioned it earlier. And this is associated with the person who is given credit for being the first person to actually design a systematic study or science of ethics. This is sort of the father of formal ethics. That would be a good thing in an ethics class to know who that person was. And it just so happens that person was Aristotle. Okay? The student of Plato. Aristotle was a student of Plato. If you ever want to know how to remember who's who among those famous dead Greek dudes, you got Socrates and Plato and Aristotle, and you go, I don't know. So somebody says, who was Aristotle Socrates' teacher? Yes or no? If you want the order of who was born first and taught who and all of that, oldest to youngest, think about, here's a memory device for you. You'll never forget this. Think about having a philosophy book and sitting in the hot tub. Okay? The word spa. S-P-A. Socrates. comes first, and then Plato, and then Aristotle. So those are the spa people. I think about myself with my philosophy book sitting in my hot tub in the spa. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Okay. Aristotle had a different way of looking at ethics. It was about the second or third class period back in January that I touched on this, mentioning that for Aristotle, ethics was about virtue. Ethics was about virtue. The Greeks had an idea of staying out of either ditch on life's road. So if we have a road here, we're driving on the road in a car. Here's our headlights, windshield, back window, our very clean exhaust. Okay, on life's road, it was a big deal to them to stay on the road and not to go into this ditch and not to go into this ditch. Now, in point of fact, they did not have automobiles in their day. Certainly, we didn't have automobiles until Jesus came and gave us automobiles, right? So, make no mistake, I'm making this up. They actually were telling people that every one of the virtues that human beings could have were going to be found on the road instead of either ditch. If you want to talk about one set of virtues that become vices if they go too far to one side or too far to another side, we could look at the virtue of courage. If I put courage on the road, then you know what courage is. Courage is, even if there's risk, when it's important, you're going to do it anyway. You know, if it's valuable enough, even if it's very dangerous, even if you could die, you're going to still go do it. But if courage moves to the left too far, then what you have is somebody who will do dangerous things for no good reason at all. Things that have not just some probability, some possibility that you could get hurt, but things where you're bound to get hurt, like from the Jackass movies that you can still see pieces of on YouTube. Any of you ever see those things, Jackass? You saw those, right? People do these things like on a dare, they run out in front of a car. What's with that? They skateboard off of an over-ramp, an overpass. And boom, or they go and when there's an animal that's dangerous, they mess with the animal, when they know they're going to get hurt, and then they do. Snake bite or whatever, just because they know people are going to be sensationalized by it, so it's going to make them noticed by other people. But they're being noticed for being a fool. They're like the equivalent of today's court jester. They're the fool. If you have somebody who's a fool like that, would you follow them into battle? But they're so brave. No, they're not brave. They're careless. They're careless and they're reckless. And so over here we have careless, imprudent, reckless. But what if a person is too concerned for their safety? Everything for safety. I have to be safe. If there's any way I could get hurt, then no. I could get hurt. So there's a child out in the street, and somebody is hurting the child. They're beating the child to death right out in front of your house. and you look out the window and you go, oh man, I should call. So you don't want anyone to see you, so you call, hey, there's someone right out in front of my house. He's got a baseball bat. There's this guy, he's got a baseball bat, and he's beating this child. He's hitting it in the head and everything. The child's not even moving, and he's still doing it. And, see, is that the response to call 911? That's the response to some child out in front of the house? Not in my universe. In my universe, that's time to head out there screaming and using whatever means you have to make it stop before it happens worse. You put a stop to it. If you don't put a stop to it, because you're so, well, he might hit me with a baseball bat, you're a coward. And that's what goes over here. You're no good. If you're that worried about your own safety that you can't go out there when somebody who's weaker is getting a beating and you can't go deal with it because, well, I could get hurt. Well, forget you. You're a coward. You have no virtue. A person with courage looks at the situation, and if you've got someone out there and there's 17 people with Uzis, and slung over their shoulder and not currently in use are big combat repeating shotguns. And they're all armored up and everything. And they drove up in Humvees and they're just blowing somebody away. To open the door and run out with no armor and no weapons at all. Hey! See, now, that's not courage. That's stupid. That's a guarantee. You're not going to even possibly make it better. You know what I'm saying? That's stupid. That shows no courage at all. You need to be tactical in a situation like that. You need to use your head. Yeah, make your call. If you can do something that you maintain cover, if you have the ability to deal with them or distract them or create a diversion or something. But if you just race out there, you're an idiot. Would you follow some idiot like that into battle? Would you want your son to follow an idiot like that into battle? Heck no. Would you like to call 911 and have them dispatch a coward to help you? Wrong. In the middle, though, somewhere, is balance. It's balance. And it's on this, every one of the virtues that make us an excellent human being, all of those things are on continuum in the middle where there is balance. Okay? So, what Aristotle does, Aristotle says, in order for something to be excellent at whatever, you need to look at what it is that makes one of those things be that kind of thing. Everything that has life is a certain kind of thing. If something is a tree, that thing cannot run in the Olympics. A tree cannot run in the Olympics. A tree cannot be the fastest tree racing around the track. A tree cannot be the best swimmer. But a fish can be the best swimmer. And a whippet or a greyhound can be the fastest dog running around the track. And if you notice with dog breeds, if you are used to purebred dogs in the sporting or working breeds, those dogs, you'll notice, are all pent up if they don't get to do whatever it is they were designed to do. They lose their marbles if you don't let them do what it is they're supposed to do. You notice? What breeds are you used to?
I have a border collie.
A border collie. Oh, they want to herd real bad. So you take a herding dog, like a border collie or a German shepherd. You go out on a walk with a group of, say, 10 or 11 people on Sabbath afternoon. And the group spreads out. Some people are like 100 feet behind. That dog will run itself nuts trying to get everybody into the right size group. So, they herd them together and move them along. And if you're standing far apart, further than normal social distance that the dog is used to, some of those dogs will do everything they can to run around and try to push the group closer together. So when they're socializing, they find themselves getting so close that it's not even comfortable. It happens to us. We've had, we've got our 4th German Shepherd now, and he loses his mind if we're in other parts of the house from one another. If I'm in my office, my wife is in her office, he races back and forth and whines, and he just can't resolve it, If one person goes out in the kitchen, he gets all hopeful, or the living room, like to watch a movie or something. It's like he gets in the hall and he doesn't know whether to go over there, run down the hall, and he's saying, and then he whines. I say, no, I'm not coming. He can't stand that, Whine, run back and forth, and as soon as everybody's right together, get right in the middle of it, and we're all good. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, when we go on walks and we get too far away, she'll run
Yep.
back and forth in between us.
Yep, can't stand it.
Or if some people are walking ahead and others stop, she'll stop and wait for
Yep.
them to catch up.
Absolutely. They have to do it. It's just what they are. You take a Labrador, and don't let the Labrador go swimming. Never throw a ball for it. Never let a Labrador bring anything back to you. That Labrador will eat your furniture and defecate on a pile of debris. It will bite you. It will lose its mind. It will keep you awake at night. It will howl. It will do things that are way out of character. But throw that ball, just enough to keep it pacified. That would be about 18 hours a day. And the Labrador is quite happy with life. In other words, if it's awake, you're throwing the ball, then everything's good. Because they're really set up for it. Really set up for it. Plus, dogs that are also protective, like German Shepherds, Dobermans, Dutch Shepherds, if you don't let them bite, if you don't put a sleeve on and let them do their business when they're really protective, they lose their mind. They want so bad to work. When I had a canine, if he had any idea that we were maybe going to go eat bad guys, he could not contain himself in the car. He'd be bouncing from one side to another, so that I'm trying to get there, and the car goes, down! And you hear me on the radio, and you hear 9757, and you hear, ah! He's just losing it, and anyone comes near the car, and his hair stands up, and he's banging his teeth on the window, and he's so happy his tail's going. It's just wonderful, but you get there, and he tracks somebody, and they give up, and there's no bite and everything, and he's like, I'm all dressed up and nowhere to go. I have to put the sleeve on and let him bite me. Or he can't stand life. I had a person that I was training for. He had a new dog, and his dog had never been taught yet how to do protection work. And he was having trouble getting the dog to realize why it was angry all the time, but it didn't know where to direct it. And so he came to my house and said, would I test his dog and see if the dog is willing to work? So I did what I do to amp the dog up and put it through the paces, and then run around the other side when it's looking that way, and every time it would aggress toward me, I'd act like it had had a big victory, and I was just agitating it, giving it a little mini course in 5 minutes. And I said, oh yeah, we can use this dog. We'll just come on Thursday nights. We'll get him on the road in a few months. And we didn't let the dog burn off any of that aggression. We're standing there. The dog is just going like this, all amped up. And pretty soon the dog just takes a hold of the headrest in his cruiser. One of those that, you can push the thing and pull it right up. Dog just takes it, goes, pulls it right out, rips out the mechanism, and then just tears the headrest all to bits. Gotta do it. I have to do it. Everything has a thing that is defining for it, for the Greeks. And you gotta do the thing. And not only do you have to do the thing, you have to do it with excellence. You do it as an art. It doesn't matter what it is. You do it wonderfully. You don't do a lot of other stuff that's irrelevant to your essence. A tree is not a good swimmer. A fish does not soar like an eagle. Eagles do not swim underwater like porpoises. They don't. And so you look at what kinds of creatures are good at what kinds of things, and then eventually you get to man. You get to human beings. Men and women have got a way about them that's not the same as border collies. Not the same as a condor or a perch. Not the same as a rose bush. Not the same as a bacteria. There's something that differentiates us that sets us apart so that we're essentially human. And according to Aristotle, and you should know this, that's reason. The dog can think. The cat can think. The rat can think. But they don't have a complicated reasoning going on. They're more or less trying to match their drives, according to Aristotle. They're just trying to match their drives to their behavior. They don't contemplate in advance a long ways and try to write a life story and then try to navigate that story the way that human beings do. So for a human being to be an ethical human being, to be a virtuous human being, what they need to do is recognize and cultivate their reason. Okay? So think of virtue ethics not in terms of the way we often use virtue, which we usually mean doesn't sleep around. That's pretty much what we mean by that, you know. Yes, you bring your girlfriend home and your grandmother and your grandfather say, "Is she a virtuous young lady?" We both know, me and you, we both know what they mean by that. Virtuous. They're hoping she requires you to be virtuous as well. But that's not what Aristotle means. Aristotle means, as we said earlier, this is the root for virtuoso. And we still say somebody's a virtuoso, like Yo-Yo Ma is a virtuoso. Right? You know who Yo-Yo Ma is? The world's best cellist. He's amazing. Oh, if you haven't heard Yo-Yo Ma. Oh, man. There's some cool things he's done, too. He's like teamed up with some contemporary musicians and done some cool things where he's doing the cello and somebody else is like scratching a record or something. It's pretty good. So, virtuoso. And what that means for human beings, what that means is to find what it is that's really essentially human. And it's going to involve reason. And the virtue is to be between excesses. Okay? To be somewhere virtuous is to be between excesses. To find what the Greeks called the golden mean. A mean is one word we use today, and we've adopted the word to make it mean something very specific in mathematics and statistics. That's one of the ways that in statistics and mathematics we describe what we call central tendency. Central tendency, one way to get the arithmetic mean, and that happens to be what I'm going to describe now, is to take what we usually think of just as the average. Okay, an arithmetic mean is just an average, where if you have, say, 7 numbers, you add the numbers together and divide by 7. If we want to know what is the average weight of everybody here, we bring a scale and we have each person stand up on the scale, we write down their weight. When we add it all up, and then we divide it by the number of people who got weighed. And that tells us what's the average. That's one way to say central tendency. Okay? So the golden mean that they're talking about is sort of this central area here. Now, there's another There's another meaning for the golden mean. If you're interested, you can use Wikipedia to look that up. The golden ratio is used in making the cover plate for the light switch. It's used by your brain to determine whether someone's ugly or attractive. Their face and their body proportions and everything, if they fit that mean, your brain, it will say, oh, that's attractive. And if they don't fit that mean, then it says, no, not attractive. So this is one way to think of ethics. Is it necessary to ignore this? Do we have to say, yes, but I'm a Christian and we have a different system of ethics? Do I have to say, so I can't do this. This is a bunch of pagan nonsense. Do I have to throw out any of these ideas because they're not specifically Christian morality? This idea of finding out what is your essence and being the best at that. Now, within human beings, according to Aristotle and according to our reason, we can gather that not every person has the same skill set. You said you were, what kind of science? Speech science? Tell me what it's called.
Communicative science.
Communicative sciences. Okay. So somebody is really excellent at communication. Or they want to be. They value that more than anything. You had a reason to major in communication. What was it? What was the reason? You have no idea why you did?
I really wanted to do it.
You really wanted to do it. That is the reason. That's a great reason. It's probably the best reason you could come up with. And it's probably the best reason anybody here, if you're majoring in something because, well, it pays pretty well. -5, guys. I am serious. That is like being a prostitute with your life. You got that? A person could be a sexual prostitute for an hour and a half, 4 or 5 times a week. And we'd say, well, that's a prostitute. But someone else could go spend 60 hours a week for the rest of their life and have to keep doing it or else they're homeless because that pays a little more than something else when they don't enjoy doing it. We don't say it's prostitute when somebody just goes out and they're a philanderer because they just want to go out and get with everybody. That's not a prostitute. That's a player, but it's not a prostitute. It's not a virtuous person by your grandparents' definition of virtue, but it's not a prostitute. You have to get paid to do that. So if you're majoring in something because, well, you got to do something and that pays better than most things, and I could probably do it. Go back before you flush more student loan money down the toilet and figure your life out a little bit better, because that's not excellence. That's mediocrity, and you're not going to be happy. You will not be happy with that model. That's a failure model. Before you even start, you have failed. Because even if you succeed, you're succeeding at something that doesn't matter to you. And money is just a coupon in exchange for taking your life. They take your life and give you a coupon. That's all. And what do you want the money for? Well, so I can enjoy your life? How about this? Pick something you enjoy, just do that, and then figure out a way that somebody pays you to do it. Do it. I recommend that. Don't do for your life something that's miserable to you, and then wonder why you don't have a wonderful life. You as a person who chose your major in communicative sciences, you could have simply said, I really like to just talk a lot. I like to communicate. I like to write online, and fill out my Facebook status every 5 seconds. And I like to get up on the phone all the time and just go for 3 hours until I have to plug it in and stay close to the plug. And I love to get with my friends and talk. I just love to do that. So I'm just going to do it. That's it. That's my life. No, I mean, you said, how can I do this excellently? I mean, made a science out of it, for crying out loud. Made a whole special discipline with books and professors and research. And by the time you're done, it's going to have dimensions for you that you never even thought of before, right? And that's an excellent approach. Something you love to do, so you're now trying to get excellent at doing what it is you love to do. +5. Extra credit. That's there. If that doesn't match your experience, check your experience. Who is it that gave you that counsel, looking in some ill-advised newsletter that they give to people to advise people who don't know which end is up for their career plans, but they think they should be in school? Next month, after they had that conversation with you, telling you what is really going to pay, in 5 years, the stupid newsletters will have a completely different list next month when they come out. Do you understand that? They're just saying stuff about the future. Now, I don't know if when they were looking at what to major in, they majored in fortune telling and reading palms. But last time I checked, people don't know the future. They don't know. There's an old saying that forecasting is very difficult, especially about the future. Think. Whatever it is makes you know that you're in the zone. You think about something you love so much right now. You love it. When you're doing it, it's like, whoa, how did it get to be dark already when you started early in the morning? You know what I'm saying? What are some examples? Someone share. Something came to mind for you.
I like driving.
You like driving. So when you get out there, like you get on Highway 1, okay? You get on Highway 1, what do you drive?
I drive a Honda Civic.
Is that what you want to be driving?
Well, that's a sport model, so yeah.
Yeah?
That's fast.
It's fast. So you take it, or a Ferrari, your choice, or like a classic Jag Roadster. You take that. You get out on Highway 1, and you start, say, at Eureka, and you're just heading south on Highway 1 in Eureka. Is that a burden? No. You go, oh, when am I ever going to be able to stop driving? No, you're in it, right? Time is not an issue. How many people, if you were just sitting on the beach in the sun, just sitting on the beach in the sun, you're going, when can I leave? Check my watch. Oh man, the time is just creeping. No, probably not. What else? What's something else? Yes.
Last quarter, I was working on my watercolor final,
Yes.
and there was still a lot of things to do, so I stayed in Fisher Hall all night, and I wasn't tired until about 7:30 in the morning when I was cleaning up to go back to the dorms.
Total energy, right? Where's the energy come from?
Doing something I'm finally good at.
Doing something you're good at. And finally is an important word.
Because I've been working hard on it, and
Yeah.
the project.
And it started clicking.
This effect. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was excited.
And then you're upset that you have to sleep.
A little bit.
It's like,
Just a little bit.
oh. Yes.
Like when I'm playing volleyball, like just like all the momentum and like it's kind of cool to just like
Yeah.
attempt to like hit someone in the face if I can. Like that's like oh that's like
Sorry if the game is over, right?
Wait, sorry.
When the game's over, you're like, oh, man, I wish we could keep going. Let's play some more. Let's play some more.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep playing. How about this? You get infatuated with somebody, that person who makes you go zing in your stomach when you see them. And then you find out that it's a corresponding response. You know, you look at them and you have that look, and then pretty soon one of you has the courage to say, we should go down and get a Junie sandwich or something, and then things progress from there. And pretty soon it's like, just want to be with them all the time. You know, it's like you sit with them, checking your watch. Man, drag. And you say, yeah. You about through here? Have you talked enough? Is it good for you? I'm out. No? That's not how it is. It's like you get with the person and it's just, you never want the evening to end. You know, it gets to be 2 a.m. and you're going, no, don't end. Don't end. I don't want next week. I want tonight. Right now. But prudence takes over and you have to drive away. Time just raced along. This model of ethics says you figure out what it is in that category for you. I met a guy because he had a car that I'd never seen before. It had fenders that were detached. It was at the time a concept car. It was quite a few years ago, but Dodge came out with it about the same time they came out. It was a Viper, I think. But the Vipers didn't end up looking like this. It was like to take pictures of for the road and track cover and that sort of thing. You know, oh, we're looking into this kind of stuff. Yeah, well, you're not going to see it in a dealership, but right now we're looking into it. Met a guy in Calistoga because I was standing there looking at this car going, what is this? Dude comes over with a camera around his neck that looked like it was probably worth more than all of our vehicles put together. And some young lady that looked like she's going to be on the cover of the next magazine too. And they came out of some restaurant on Sunday mid-morning in Calistoga. And he sees me looking at the car and he says, there's something, huh? I said, where'd you get this? He said, well, it's not mine. You stole this car? I was a cop at the time. You stole the car? He said, no, I didn't steal it. He said, try to wrap your mind around this. I have such a terrible life. Right now I'm on contract for a magazine in Germany. And they're paying me to take this car from one end of California to the next, up the coast, and then down the Central Valley. And what I'm supposed to do is a photo essay with the car and just sort of journal a little bit, write a few lines each day and remember which pictures. And I can take my girlfriend along, and then they pay for hotels or bed and breakfast and any meals wherever we want. We're supposed to go to some nice fancy places and get pictures of the car there and get permission. And he said, so I'm pretty much going all the way up. He said, I'm heading over now. I'm going to hit Highway 1 and go. And I said, and they're paying you to do this? And he says, yeah, I'm not a freelancer. I'm their photographer. And when I am done with this, I'll have a couple weeks off and then I'll start again. And they'll give me a month and another car and the credit card. Doesn't that sound like a terrible job? You would hate it. Wouldn't you? You would hate that. He was doing it for his living. I guarantee you there were no counselors in his high school. When he came in and said, what should I do? They said, you know what you want to do? The magazines hire people to do stuff like this. Because what do you really like to do? Oh, I love to drive. Oh, well, here's what you ought to do. He was doing it. He was doing it. And I said, so do they pay you well? And he says, it's embarrassing how well they pay me. Plus all the expenses. Plus he says, I'm literally gone half the time anyway. I don't even have to spend my own money. I just put it in the bank. Oh, what a terrible life that would be. The guy figured out what tapped into that place for him, the way that watercolor taps in to some place in you. Now, if somebody pays you to make beautiful watercolors. And your life is one awesome project after the next. I mean, you're glowing when I say that. Yeah, it's scary. It's scary, and there's almost something in us that feels guilty to entertain the idea that we could take whatever it is that really rings our bell and have that be our life. But I will promise you, it can be done. I am 100% certain from personal experience that you can do that. That you can figure out what seems like, I never want this to end, and then you can just do it. So that if you had $1 billion, here's another good test of that. If I gave you, not $1 billion, if I gave you Bill Gates' fortune, so you have Bill Gates' fortune in your bank account with a card that you can just spend, and it grows interest faster than you have the energy to spend it. So that's you. How do you spend tomorrow? Money off the table because it's such a done deal for you. What do you do tomorrow? What do you do Friday? How do you spend this weekend? If you're heading somewhere with your life, so that I say, where's your life heading? What are you preparing to do? If it's not the same thing as you would do if you had $1 billion, then you are heading the wrong way. You're about to prostitute your life. And I do believe that a part of Christian ethics is we do not sell our lives for money. We just don't do it. If you want to look in Mark 10 and see what Jesus had to say to the person who wanted that extra magic in his life that Jesus obviously had, the guy said, what do I have to do so I can get it like you got it? He says, keep the law. I do that. So you're all set, right? You know what I mean? Yes, I do. You want what you see that I have. This is infinity stuff. Yeah. Then take everything you have, sell it, just give that away to the poor. And it says he went away sad. He had a lot of stuff. He had too much to let go of. He was holding on to coupons for life while his life went by and he wasn't doing the life. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you're 50 years old and every time someone asks you if they'd like to go down to Junius, you say, no, I'm saving myself for somebody special. But you're older than me, say. And you've been saying it for 30 years, 35 years, 40 years. They come along, no, I'm saving myself for that one right person. I can't go to Junius with you. I can't have a relationship with you. Well, if there's somebody, then go get them. But don't just let your life go by. Same thing. People imagine that they're going to do all these cool things once they retire. So they're saving up to do it, but then they get retired and it's like, I can't even do that anymore. I'm not even capable of doing that anymore. I can't see well enough to paint. They took my driver's license away a long time ago and I still don't have all the money that I need. Can't drive now. I don't care what it is that is your thing. I mean, I care, but it's not important for this discussion. Whatever it is your deal. You don't have a thing. You couldn't list a thing that is what you like the most, that you can't make an embarrassingly good living doing. But you can't go after the money. You don't do it for the money. The money just comes out of gratitude because you're the best and people are competing to get your services because you're doing the thing that lights you up. That's backwards. You don't do anything for money. You do things so well that the money chases you down and you can't get away from it. Can't even give it away. Nobody here is imagining something that if you were the best at that thing, you would not be wealthy from it. Not one person here is imagining one thing that you'd love to do with your life that wouldn't seem like work. There's not one thing you're imagining that if you were the best, it would turn into a fortune for you. Not one exception to that. It doesn't even have to make sense. It doesn't have to be legal. It doesn't even have to be decent. But my statement is still standing. It's time to go. I look forward to seeing you all on Monday. Probably more than you'll look forward to it, because on Monday, what happens?